Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Woodward Tigers here at woodwardsports.com. I'm Rogelio Castillo. Alongside me is Uper. Chris Brown should be arriving here shortly. You can find us on Spotify, iHeartMedia, or Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to podcasts. And thank you again. We got some good feedback again on the email side. We got a couple questions. People are utilizing the questions. So if you have any questions for the show, I should put this in the banner. I'll put this in the banner. So if you can also reach us at woodwardtigers@gmail.com, or I'll put my name on here for Woodward Sports because it's easier to do it that way if you're watching us on YouTube. So, yep, right there, Rogelio at woodwardsports.com, ROGELIO. And also, you can send us a DM on Twitter if you're on Twitter at Broadcast Baseball or Chris Brown 1914 or Uper. You can follow Uper too as well. What's your Uper? Uper_IA. Is that correct?
Yep. IA for Iowa. Yep.
Yeah. So all those avenues are there. But if you do not use Twitter, you hate Twitter, and you hate the idea of Twitter, you can also send us a message also at the Tiger Mind Report Facebook page, something that I totally forgot about. So if you're on Facebook, just send us a message there. I check everything. So coming up tonight, we're going to go over the Tigers homestand, some good numbers to stand out there. We got a couple questions, and we also got a couple comments, including I want to kind of I don't want to reprimand or anything, but I do find it funny that not funny, but just kind of sad that there was people who there's. Hey, Chris, how you doing? Good evening, Christopher, who's watching us on YouTube. I did find it sad. I don't know if you saw this or not. Me and Chris were talking about this yesterday, but how many people when Dan Hasty, friend of the show, Dan Hasty, was asking for questions for the Road to Detroit podcast that was going to have Jackson Jobe on, how many people were actually ripping on him? And I just get a life. No, seriously, get a life.
Yeah.
Get a life.
I mean, it's fine if you really are dead set, dug in that they should have taken a shortstop. Okay, but that's not Jackson Jobe's fault. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, you have to give the kid his chance, and odds are, I think he's pretty talented. He'll prove himself worthy of at least being in that discussion with those guys, and or maybe he won't, and that'll be a discussion we have. But that's not one to have yet.
Yeah. And Chris, did we not? I mean, Chris has been tracking the shortstops because he's cool like that, and the Tigers have one in Isaac Pacheco.
Definition of cool.
Well, look, my definition of cool is me having Transformers right here and then talking nerdy to we had a fan who was from Windsor who actually is going to, we were talking about the Jacksonville Suns, and he is kind enough to send me a hat, which he didn't have to do. He said he's not wearing it. And that was when the Tigers were affiliate just for the one season. So I'm rocking although you can't see it right now. Let me switch spots here. So you can see the London Tigers hat I'm rocking right now, which they were a AA team for the Tigers from the late 80s, I think 93, 94, before all that chaos began. But anyway, so yeah, anyway, just come on. I mean, I know Twitter is a bunch of keyboard warriors, but just, I don't know, some of those questions were making me sick, or comments were making me just nauseous.
Yeah, no, it's Tigers fans are upset about everything right now. And they have a right to be, I guess, but again, it doesn't give them a right to kind of take it out on Jackson Jobe, who did nothing but get drafted, and he's pitched okay. He's not setting the world on fire, but he's still this talented kid. And Marcelo Meyer is a very good prospect, but he's also just in high A, just like Jackson Jobe, just got to high A. So we'll give these guys a couple more years. And meanwhile, I have to say that the Tigers 2021 draft looks pretty good. Brant Herter's rough start tonight notwithstanding, you've got Jobe, you've got Pacheco, who looks awesome. You got Ty Madden, who looks good. You got Dylan Smith, who looks pretty good. Brant Herter, there's Josh Crouch. It's a pretty good draft class right now. I mean, we'll see what happens down the road, but I suppose you could argue it would have been better if they had taken Marcelo Meyer, but whatever. And it is what it is at this point. Just let Jackson Jobe pitch. Come on. These same people will be, singing his praises when he's up in Detroit in a few years, striking guys out.
So I was out of the loop a little while today in the morning. What happened to Jobe?
He slept on his back wrong. Was that what it was?
I don't know where. I didn't see that official report anywhere. All we knew is that he was scratched, and they hoped to start him later. And then people started talking about how he slept wrong, because I had actually joked with Raj, like, hopefully it's just him, slept in a funny spot.
That was according
Sleeping
to
wrong is supposed to happen when you're 49, not 19.
Yeah.
No, I will no, because when I was in high school, I slept wrong in my junior year, and I hurt my neck. I had a neck where my neck was like this, and I couldn't move it to the side. When I got to school, and people thought I was faking it to get out of class. And literally, I'm driving home. My mom had to take me to the hospital. I'm just driving because I just got my license. I'm like, I couldn't even look back in the mirror. I'm like, oh, the pain. So yeah, that happens. But
I've had that happen to me once or twice. I remember I may have even told this the podcast before, but once, way back in the day, my brother he got hired in at Rouge Steel, which is now Severstal or whatever, the steel mill down there in Detroit, or Dearborn, as it were. And like the first day of work, his neck got stuck sideways, so he was walking around like all over the place like this. He couldn't do anything.
Oh my gosh,
that's a tough break. You look like Joan Cusack in 16 Candles.
Yeah, so this is where people probably got the information from. So this is from Chris Muskowski earlier today, who said that Ryan Garko was the one. He slept wrong, woke up with a sore back. Nothing serious, just being cautious. We'll start this weekend, which is fine because, quite frankly, I wouldn't mind going to West Michigan this weekend anyway. So
for sure.
So, yeah. So we were supposed to
have a larger crowd, but
it's okay. We got the press passes, so all we gotta do is just bust those out and just go. I'll actually show Jake's here because Jake never picked his up. I just go, hey, look, I'm Jake Bose.
Isn't that Erie?
Yeah, that's Erie, but I have Toledo's in my car somewhere. So I started keeping them in my car because I lose everything. Having ADHD, you tend to lose a lot of things. You have to kind of be on top of your game a little bit. So I decided I'm just going to put it in my glove compartment because if somebody steals that, you're not going to go. It's hard to pass for a 5'7" chubby Hispanic dude. It came in like they'll probably go. So is your name? Yeah, Rogelio? No, people can't say my name. So, but I digress. But yeah, I wanted to start off with that because again, Jackson Jobe's going to get no matter what's going to happen here in the next month or so, he could have a bad start. And now it's on a bigger spotlight because unlike Lakeland, a lot of West Michigan games are on TV. And speaking of which, by the way, Chris Castanelli joined Dan doing color commentary tonight, which was really cool. So props to him for doing that. It's I saw you, Chris, bring up your old call, the wow call.
Well, yeah, I don't know why Mark Gorash just decided like, hey, following in my footsteps. I'm like, I don't like you went on before me with Dan, I think, and I think Keenan went on like 3-4 years ago. Like it's not. They have a lot of people on there. They have the Milk Means More people on there. So haven't figured out what more milk means, but whatever.
Oh, that's part of a sponsorship kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's just, okay. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, but
funny phrase to me.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm gonna pull up the questions real quick for people on YouTube. So let me see if I could let's see here. Yeah, I'm gonna put up here in just a second. We did get a follow-up question on today in regards to us talking about Matt Manning's start, which we will get to because that's actually a very important. I thought it was a very big start for him today, continuing to build on. Again, I mean, the Giants, I know, are under 500, but still, the Giants are a good team. I mean, it's win's a win, but we'll get that in a second. But here is where I saw this earlier. I saw this, and Chris and I were talking about this earlier. So if you're watching on YouTube, so here are some of the comments based off here. This one right here. You guys, I know you still got plenty of time to develop, and there's not much yet to analyze, but pitching a 136 whip in 61 innings at single A in the Tigers farm system is about as exciting as bringing Osmus back. I don't get the correlation with that at all. Why should the Tigers have drafted Marcelo Meyer instead of him? Is his dad golf buddies with Chris Ilitch? When are you going to start showing? When are you going to start showing number one pick talent? Like that makes any. This one was kind of funny. I've actually laughed about this one. This one was also kind of. This question ended in mind. This one. Are you learning anything? Do you feel like you're not learning anything? Because we have asked prospects before when they get called up. if they've learned anything. So, or what they're doing. But other than that, let us see here. Oh, can he hit? How's your here's one. This one from Eric Constantini, who I know, good friend of the show. Should the Tigers have drafted Marcelo Meyer? Yes or yes. I kid. Interested to know if and how his approach to game or batter has changed his time as a pro. And this one's a good question. That's a good question. I know he was joking, but still, I feel like people get that, that little jab in, like, hey.
At the end of the day, when the draft was happening, I wanted them to draft Marcelo Meyer. I'll be honest.
Yeah, I did too.
And that's fine. But the thing about it now is it's over. I mean, we can bang on Avila, I guess, but that's, kicking a dead horse. I don't know what that's going to do. It happened. You can't change it. So now you just got to look for signs of growth and development from Jobe. And, there's no reason why you can't show that.
Yeah. There's again, I don't know. I think there's people, just people are people. We're good to say, Chris?
I have been keeping track of those stats. And basically, there's one thing right now that is keeping Jackson Jobe from having terrific numbers, and it's giving up a bunch of home runs. He's given up way too many home runs, and that's probably just a matter of, I mean, he's throwing strikes at a level greater than most of his contemporaries from that draft class. Andrew Painter is on a different level, but he's throwing enough strikes. He's getting a decent amount of swings and misses and strikeouts. He's just giving up a bunch of home runs, which is something that is fixable with better command, with better sequencing, with all that stuff. So, I'm not too concerned about Jackson Jobe right now. And I'm definitely not concerned about him sleeping poorly in his, new guest house or wherever he's staying.
You know what? He could have been sleeping on a waterbed for all we know. And
he might have had one of those My Pillows and got to get rid of that thing.
Oh man, everybody made a big deal about waterbeds back in the day, but I always thought they were uncomfortable. But moving on to Matt Manning's start. Matt Manning, we talked about this earlier on the post-game show. Matt Manning with a career high 8 strikeouts, and he was able to generate some more swings and misses and continues to add to that total. And one of the things that we talked about today was, and I thought Chris we did get a follow-up to that question from our buddy Mark at Tigers, the gentleman who DMs me the question. He wanted to know, based off what you said, Chris, and this is the question. We're not going into questions right now, but it ties into what we're talking about Matt Manning. Is there a difference between spin-based movement and actual movement? Chris is correct. His slider has less movement overall, less vertical drop, and slightly more horizontal movement. But the spin-based movement numbers I referenced seems to suggest the movement has increased quite a bit. Am I trying to compare numbers that don't relate to each other at all? I told them that those can be those two things can be totally different based off, like, for example, movement versus spin. You can have a high spin rate, but if it doesn't move anywhere, it doesn't do anything.
Yeah. I mean, there's the whole big thing with sliders, particularly about the kind of spin it is. If it's the gyro spin or if it's like a sweeping slider, and the gyro spin doesn't have any actual. It all goes back into that like the seam shift wake and those things where. It is movement based on the spin direction rather than the spin rate, I think. I mean, there's a lot more to it than everybody gets super excited about numbers, like new numbers we find, and we learn that, like, hey, high spin rate is good, but then there's always much more to it, and we always point out like Corbin Burns had a crazy spin rate, but was getting destroyed before he changed his pitch mix. And then Dan Dickerson told us, like, who has a low spin rate? Josh Hader. And Josh Hader, up until a month ago, was great. So there's a lot more to it. In my speculation is just that they've made Matt Manning's slider look a lot more like his fastball to hitters now. And that's not necessarily something that I know how to look at the data and determine, but the results are there. In fact, they're my inside the number.
All right, well, we'll save that for the inside the numbers. So, but that and the thing about Matt Manning's start, that it was something that it was funny. Hinch kind of correct when I asked Hinch about, he doesn't have he doesn't have a third pitch, and I mentioned this last week. He's like, well, does it matter if he's getting guys out with 2 pitches? True. I always worry about when batters start figuring it out, because as soon as they do, they're going to sit and wait, see if he's going to. He has a curveball and he has a changeup too. His curve has shown flashes of goodness. We've seen that in Toledo, where it can drop off the face of the planet pretty well when he, in terms of you're talking about a clock, 12-6. He's got some good action with it, but it's not consistent enough. And same thing with the change. That being said, still, I mean, you got to be encouraged with the fact that here we are towards the end of September, or excuse me, end of August, heading into September. You have Matt Manning, Tyler Alexander, Drew Hutchison, and Eduardo Rodriguez, who pitched really well on Sunday, as your four-man rotation heading into September. I never thought in a million years I say those four names. I thought Hutchison at this point, for how many times he's been DFA'd by the Tigers, he's like a car you have. Like, he's like that. To me, he's like my 1992 Ford Mercury Topaz I had. I called it Lazarus because my dad, this car died 3 or 4 times. And my dad kept fixing it, and it kept running no matter what. And this car, by the end of it, had the odometer broke on it, which is notorious for Fords in the early 90s. And at that point, I think I had, it was my mom's car, and then she passed it to somebody else, and then I had it. It had over 200,000 miles on it, and it would not die. Finally, it did because the trans finally gave out. But either way, maybe Drew Hutchison, I'm sorry for any Drew Hutchison fans out there that I'm comparing him to a 1992 Mercury Topaz. He's better than that.
What I've been watching with Manning that I really it strikes me, and again, some of this goes back to being an amateur umpire. I tend to watch what pitchers make the catchers work the hardest, and behind the plate, whether it's trying to have it to block everything, whether it's reaching across the zone because you missed your spot by the whole plate, or you got to leap up out of your stance to get something that he uncorked high. I think the catchers have been having a pretty easy job catching Matt Manning right now. His command is really good. He's not over the middle of the plate. He's been right, on the corners. I haven't noticed catchers doing a whole lot back there other than just receiving the ball. So that didn't appear to be the case last year. A little more lively behind the plate. So it's really been impressive. I mean, Chris's tweet earlier about the swings and misses, I won't, if that's your behind the number, we'll stop talking about it. But when you do get to talk about it, it was pretty striking.
Yeah, there's like I said, we have been, and we said this earlier, we have been very critical about Matt Manning. We have freely admit that, and if we're wrong, we're wrong. There's nothing wrong with saying that we don't get it right. I mean, there's certain people that there's certain
point of order. We weren't wrong. He's gotten better.
Yeah, he's gotten better. No, you're right.
I guess we could say it was me mostly, right? Like, it was my inside the number 4 times where I was like, Matt Manning he's not missing bats. Now he is. And now we can be excited about him, at least in my opinion, because that's what he needed to do. There was a lot of other things that looked okay, but it's like you can only go so far if you're not missing bats. Your ceiling is like Mike Pelfrey. So, yeah. But now he's a guy you can dream on. And like we said earlier, I still think your question to Hinch was fine, but he's looking at it from a different perspective where we just need to get outs. These guys are young. They need to figure things out. Who cares about a third pitch if you can get guys out right now with 2? Eventually, he is going to need another reliable pitch, but he's found his out pitch, which is a huge thing. We mentioned earlier today after the show. So, yeah, just to clarify, we weren't wrong.
No, we weren't. Oh, okay.
He's better.
He's better. And I'm cool with, and there's something, and Walter brings up a good point. That is something that we're bringing up a part of the news segment, because the way I've kind of structured it now is Tiger news, baseball news, inside of numbers, good and bad, the ugly, and then questions. So if you're new to the show, that's how the structure of the show works. We just talk baseball. We interact with people on YouTube because we can do that now. Thanks to everybody who participates. And Walter brings up a good point here. And this is something that I was going to address next, which is the starting pitching, which is 9. This is a really good one here. 9 starts in a row with starters going at least 5 innings with 3 runs or less. Something good to take away from the last few weeks. And you're absolutely right. I mean, the ERA, the Tigers in August is 2.62, something to that effect that I tweeted out earlier in the week. And the biggest takeaway right now, with the fact that it's like kind of a no-name, I don't want to say, I hate saying a no-name rotation with Eduardo Rodriguez being a free agent signing, but this is before he joined the rotation. So if he joined the rotation, what, Sunday, right? The 21st? Was that right?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's look at quick poll here of the Tigers ERA before it. Ooh, Colorado Rockies have a 6.6 ERA among their as a staff since the beginning of August. Rough. Oof. Okay, so I have it up right here. So the Tigers ERA for the month of August before Eduardo Rodriguez joined the 2.67. It's good for a 1.1 WAR. They have a FIP of 4.27, which is not ideal, but still. But the K per 9 is where it stands out because you look at the Dodgers. Okay, they have an ERA 2.34. Their WAR is 2.3, and their K per 9 is 9.47. The Tigers 5.76. 5.76. So that, I mean, I'm not nitpicking that. I mean, for what it's worth, and they've pitched over 100 innings, and this is a staff that, remember, the bullpen was doing the majority of the work earlier in the year, and the starters weren't going that deep in games. So releasing 5 to 6 innings, and that sounds bad considering too that Sawyer Long for Erie had one of the longest starts in the minor leagues for the season, and probably one of the longest starts for anybody across the organization. Anyway, but yeah, that's just wanted to bring that up. As far as even for a team that's kind of contending too, like for the Dodgers are just making quick work about that. But we're going to get those two teams and get to the Dodgers. We're going to get to the Orioles, who have had, by the way, the best record since the All-Star break. Think about that for a second, folks. Since July 2nd, they've had the best record in all of baseball.
Is that right?
The Baltimore Orioles.
Wow. I did not know that.
That was an article posted a couple days ago by Mike Pertello over at MLB.com. And yeah, Baltimore. Wow. And this is for anybody that, so I'm dating myself here probably, but, and Chris, maybe you remember this or not. And you, Brian, definitely know you remember this. Baltimore was born and bred by the farm system. They signed a few free agents here and there, but they were always about having a good farm system. You look at those rotations in the 70s, 80s.
Oh,
Eddie Murray was, did Eddie Murray come from the Dodgers or was he from Baltimore?
I think he was just straight from Baltimore.
Okay.
But you look at their rotation they built in that one World Series. I mean, it was Scott McGregor and Flanagan, and Palmer was still left. And, pretty sure Dennis Martinez all came through their program.
Yeah, Dennis Martinez. TP Martinez was a pretty good, I think it was a lefty reliever for them in the early 80s. They had, in addition
I just saw a story about him. Did you see that where he picked off 3 guys in one inning?
TP Martinez?
Yeah.
He also had a really good head of hair too. Like he had a good head of lettuce. Like there's this, the reason why is I always think of when you think of feathered hair in the 70s, I always see that look, and it's always weird to see it on a baseball player. But he pulled off a pretty good head of lettuce. Like it's just you're gonna find here, but this is him. He had it was more or less towards the 80s, but I remember TP Martinez, just because I thought for a while I got him confused for a minute with Dennis Martinez, because when I looked at it, I did not realize both of them pitched with Baltimore. So but yeah, anyway, I was gonna pull up a picture, but I see.
They also, obviously they brought up Ripken through their program.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure Al Bunbury came right through the program in their minor league system. Of course, it was a different sport back then with the rules, but still, I mean, they grew some world champions.
Yeah, and Earl Weaver is, considered he was the guy who pretty much invented the 3-run homer. Get 2 guys on and hit a home run and call it a day. So, all right, no more old dated baseball references, because I can go on and on about that, and we don't have time for that. So let's go. And this was a suggestion to do this, and I'm going to stick with it. So it is now time for Inside the Numbers. All right, I apologize about that. That was a little loud there. That's on me there. So, Uper, what is your Inside the Number?
Okay, my numbers this week: 40.5, 0.223, 45 plus, and 35 plus. Those are numbers that belong and will possibly belong to one Gage Workman. Now, here's what we're going to do. You guys have seen him play more in person than I have. Okay?
All right.
Let's pretend this is 1968, and we don't care what shortstops hit. They can hit 200, they can hit 100. Nobody cares.
All right.
And it's 1968, and Chris is listening to Tom Jones, and Rogelio's listening to the Strawberry Alarm Clock, and Jose Feliciano. And it's 1968, and you guys are watching him play defense in the minors. Is he a major league shortstop defensively?
Dear.
I don't think so. I think he's capable of playing shortstop and capable of making some kind of spectacular plays at times. But he's just a big guy. He's like 6'4", and he is a very good athlete. But I don't think he has the kind of the 60s level glove that you want. Although, I mean, yeah, he may have been an absolute freak in 1968. But yeah, I mean, I think he can survive in the major league shortstop, but I think he'd be a much better third baseman.
Okay, because his numbers, and if we do consider the offense, he's striking out 40.5% of the time. I mean, there's no getting around that. That just kind of screams off the page. He's hitting 223. Okay, that's fine, whatever. But what draws me in past that strikeout rate, there's a very good chance he's going to end up with 45 or more extra base hits because he's already got 41. He's got a shot at stealing 35 or more bases at a good clip. You know, it's not like he's been thrown out 15 times. He's been thrown out like 6 times. He's got 29 steals, so he might get to 35. We're close. So he has the extra base power and he has the wheels. So there's skills there. And I was trying, and I couldn't think of anybody who had a K rate that high at his age in AA who brought it down to a reasonable level, like 23%. So I just don't know. I think he's the kind of guy, you can't give up on him because he has those skills. But 40.5%, that's going to be the number that probably everybody remembers about the Gage Workman era unless he turns it around.
So if he's hitting for what would be then the Montgomery Rebels, because that was a AA affiliate for the Tigers in the Southern League, who finished 80 and 57 that season, he would be ahead of one Timothy Martland, who made 23 errors and he had 195 putouts. I'm not sure how many innings he did because it wasn't showed there. Jim Leland, by the way, was the backup catcher for that team. There's like a whoop drop, like a fun did you know? But anyway, I think for that era, I could live with it. If he was playing shortstop, I think he would have maybe been like, if we're being realistic, or if we're being true to the form, if he just stayed at shortstop, yes, he would have been an athletic freak or maybe moved to the outfield. But if he would have stayed at shortstop, I think is the way looking at the minors through then, because he's putting all those extra base power up there, I would have been fine with it. Because again, the guy who led the AA Montgomery Rebels in 1968 with 18 doubles was one James Covington, who was 25 at that point. So I'm looking at relatively the age, that's kind of old for even being in AA. So, I mean, I think that I could have lived with that then, because think about it this way. This is 1968, so the last year before they lowered the mound, right? 1969, they lowered the mound. So offensively speaking, numbers were crap then. So it's, I don't know. I think Workman, I would have been just like, wow, who the hell is this guy? But I would have lived with it.
Does he have a 5% chance of ever being the Tigers starting shortstop in the next 3 years?
Not right now. Somebody asked us on the minor league account if it's fair that he basically dropped all the way off the MLB pipeline top 30 list, I believe, which is kind of shocking for them. They are usually not that drastic. But a 40% strikeout rate is just disqualifying. It's even beyond that. It'd be one thing if he's striking out 40% of the time and maybe walking 10, 12, 15, 20%. He's walking like 6% of the time. It's a huge disparity. I want to say it's 0.16 walks per strikeout. And when somebody I looked at, I was like, has anybody with this strikeout rate ever made the majors? And I think there are a couple guys who got a cup of coffee at times, but it really no.
That's exactly where I was going. I could not think of anybody who lowered their strikeout rate enough to make it.
It's rare. It's pretty rare to find anybody who strikes out at that rate, who even gets to like AA or AAA. He's already kind of an anomaly by getting this high with those strikeout issues. Now, I think he is a guy who he's got the physical talent, and he's got an incredible contact to damage ratio. Like when he makes contact, good things happen a lot. He hits, I think nearly half of his hits are for extra bases. Like you said, he might steal 30 bases for the second straight year. I think he was second in the minors in doubles last year. He's got a ton of raw power. Speed is there. His arm's there. Like there's a lot to like. It's just, the most difficult, the most important thing he can't do right now. And like you said, I don't want to give up on him completely because of all those secondary tools. And there have been occasional instances of guys figuring something out, but usually it's guys who also walk a lot. Like Will Benson is a guy that he's a Cleveland Guardians player now. He was a prospect of theirs. I think he was in the same draft as Matt Manning, so 2016. And he was a guy who struck out like 30% every year. And then this year, randomly, strikeout rate went down like 10%. He's striking out like 20% of the time now. And he's always been a double-digit walk guy. And suddenly he's a really interesting player. So it does happen occasionally, but I think with somebody like Workman, it's a pitch recognition issue. I remember watching him at a game in West Michigan last year, I think it was. He got 3 consecutive breaking balls and swung completely through the first 2 and made contact on the third one. They threw him a fastball he didn't swing at, threw him another breaking ball, and he swung right through it again. Like he can, if you throw him the same pitch in the same location 3 times, he might get to it. But I don't know if he recognizes spin enough to succeed.
Yeah, and therein lies a problem too in terms of his strikeout numbers. He is the league leader. Excuse me, he leads all. Let me double check that just to make sure in terms of strikeouts for AA. He does lead he leads all of AA in strikeouts with 169. Second closest is Tyler Fitzgerald of San Francisco with 143. So
wow. Yeah,
let me double check that because I think it's I want to double. That's all the Eastern League. I apologize. Let me double check that though.
No,
I'm sorry. It was a Drew Lugbar leads all of it with 176, and then Craig DeLillo, who's 27, is 173, and then Workman comes in at 9. But he does lead all the Eastern League. Oh, former a guy who used to be interesting, Griffin Conine, 154. So there's your fun fact for you.
Yeah, so it's interesting. You can look back. I'm on Fangraphs. I'm looking back since 2006. They have, and if you look at strikeout rates above 35% for players age 22 or older, right? So Workman's 22 or possibly turns 23 at the end of the season. There are very few guys on this list that ever even reached the majors. Looking, like I don't remember if. I remember Adam Brett Walker being a name, but 38% strikeout rate. I don't know if he ever made it. Dermis Garcia is a guy I've heard of. But what's interesting is down here at number 82 is 2019's Eric Haas with a 35.4% strikeout rate and a 10.5% walk rate as a 26-year-old in AAA. So,
okay,
maybe if he gets it down, I mean, that's a catcher, so that's a special occasion. But maybe if Workman can get it down to 30%, to strike out, 30 times less over the course of a season, maybe he can be a useful piece. But and it's another thing I haven't really looked in. I remember last year he was just unusable as a right-handed hitter. He's hitting better as a right-hander this year, but I wonder if they cut that out, if it might get any better. But
and Christopher brought up Rob Deere in the YouTube chat, which is that's 100% true. But then again, guys weren't also throwing with alarming spin rate and velocity.
And Rob Deere also walked a ton.
Yeah.
We all remember his strikeout rate because it was unusual at the time, but he was another guy who he was ahead of his time in terms of being like a 3-2 outcome player.
Was his walk like 17% or something? Like something really, really
I think
high.
so. I'm trying to look it up right now, but yeah, it and again, this is Double-A. This is where Spencer Torkelson demolished the league, and baseball's hard. It only gets harder from Double-A on. So I'm looking at Rob Deere. So with Detroit, he walked a 16.5% walk rate in 1991. He hit 179, but had 25 home runs, and was worth 1.0 WAR. Not bad.
There you go.
Well, there you go. Wow. Well, I mean, look, for baseball, MLB Pipeline to do that too. There was some. Kean showed me like, no, this list now matters, and so maybe they're taking some. Maybe they know for a fact, like, yeah, guys, we're a little too easy on these guys, so maybe we should, yeah. I don't know. Gage Workman is a fun player to watch. Like I said, when I watched him last year in Lakeland go to take the ball all fields, he does hit it with power. So, all right, Chris, we went on a big Gage Workman trail. So, what is your inside number?
So mine is 47. 47. That is the swing and miss percentage on Matt Manning's slider this year after today's performance. He got 12 swings and misses on 19 swings today. And again, it's not a huge sample size, of course, because it's only been like 4 or 5 starts. I suppose I don't know. Maybe he has 8 total in this year. I don't know exactly, but that is a giant leap from where it was last year when it was just 22.9%. So you're talking about a 25-point jump in swing and miss rate on one pitch. And again, we touched on it that just from looking at the data, it basically looks like it's 2 miles an hour slower and it drops less. Which to me, again, that's the only thing I can think of is that hitters can't tell the difference between that and his fastball. So, I just wanted to do one for Manning because of all the times I did one against Manning. This is a great sign to have a guy, like we said earlier, like he's got an out pitch now. Who knows if it'll continue lasting like this? I mean, Alex Fido was basically a slider fastball guy, and before he got hurt, he was surviving. But Manning has some other things going for him, and he's still 24. So definitely a good development, and it wouldn't be bad if the Tigers had a guy with a really nasty slider for once.
Yeah, that would not be injury prone. That'd be cool. I mean, something to that. Just consistency would be fantastic. So my inside number this week involves somebody who we love dearly on the show, especially Uper. 102, and that'd be the WRC Plus of Victor Reyes, as Chris Mikowski called him an assassin, a silent assassin. And look,
well earned.
Depends on what you think. I mean, like it's fascinating because I look at his power ISO. His ISO is 0.65, and for the month of August, it's like 0.88 or something.
But he's maximizing that 0.65, Raj.
Yeah, he is. Look, if he was the guy I look at Victor Reyes as the equivalent of if he was a power forward in the NBA, he would be a guy that would get the job. He would be like the defensive specialist. He would get the job done, maybe score a few baskets, and you're good. Like he's good enough to be maybe a starter when your big guy goes down. But look, Victor Reyes is a serviceable player. He's having a really good year. I pointed out earlier his batting average is 37 points higher against right-handers this year, so that's a plus. So I'm going to give some props to Victor Reyes. Look, I mean, there's not much. This season has been a very dismal year, but there are some glimpses, and it's nice to have Victor Reyes. Again, the Tiger outfield is a collective. Home run wise, don't get me. It's self-explanatory. It's bad, as Chris pointed out earlier, or Christopher pointed out in the YouTube chat. 3.18 runs per game. That is worse than the 2003 team. But that being said, Victor Reyes had a nice game today, and when he's healthy, he's been effective. And there is, again, what else do you want from a guy that gives you the kind of service? He's serviceable. So
that triple on Sunday against the Angels was pretty sweet.
Man, he's just the way he runs too. Like he covers so much ground. It's just so weird. It looks like he's Frankenstein out there. And I'm not making fun. Like I'm sounding like I'm being a dick, but I'm not. I promise. Like
No, I know.
it's all max effort for him. I mean, he's injured himself running because he puts it. Victor Reyes is he made a good catch too out there.
Yeah,
he's
in the rain.
Yeah, in the rain, and that's hard to do. And he, like I said, I think people give him a lot of crap, but really, in all reality, he's a serviceable guy. And for a season that is considered one of the by far just worst expectations, it's a small thing to pay attention. It's worth paying attention to.
He's been remarkably clutch. Somebody pointed out this year, like, hey, he's. It seems like every time he comes up with two men or with men on 2 outs, he gets a hit. And I looked it up, and he's like 10 for 23. So, it's. I don't know. Again, he's sort of reminds me a little bit of Derek Hill when we kept talking about, like, this is a guy who would be really useful on a better team that doesn't have to rely on him. They can, put him out when you need a lefty bat or a righty bat, or you want to get it stolen. Defensive.
He could have been Rupert Jones on the '84 team.
Yeah.
He's spare part that's useful.
Yeah, there's stuff to like there. He's not the kind of he hasn't been the joke that he was, coming out of the Rule 5 draft. He's a guy who's never going to walk a ton, but he's a legitimate big league player now, which is it's helpful. It's just one of those things, like, I don't know if he's ever going to be on a good Tigers team, because he's only around for like 2 more years before free agency, I think, at this point, which is kind of wild.
Yeah. Again, it's one of those things where, to me at least, you get what you get, and that's perfectly fine. And I'm not going to, quite frankly, just dish the guy to dish the guy. For a team that has not a lot of stories to go on, there you go. I mean, Victor Reyes is what he is. I mean, he is. People always give him crap. It gets kind of old after a while. He's doing his thing, so that's my thing. Yes, Derek Hill signed with Seattle. So somebody asked that on YouTube. So that is correct. So now we go into our good and bad, the good, the bad, and the ugly this week. All right, Chris, what is your good and the bad and the ugly this week?
A couple weeks ago, I mentioned Francisco Lindor is my good because he's been really good. So, but I wanted today to talk about one of the guys he was traded for, Andres Gimenez, who was a top prospect for the Mets, came up at a really young age. And, it's one of those things where he was a top prospect long enough and in the big leagues and not really doing much. You kind of, I don't know, forgot about him a little bit. Like, it's not going to work out. But, boy, he's been awesome this year, hasn't he? He's been one of the best baseball players in baseball over the last month or so, like close to 2 WAR. He was only hitting 218 last year with a 73 WRC plus, but this year he's an all-star, 152 WRC plus, worth over 4.5 WAR. He might have a 2020 season, and he doesn't turn 24 until like 2 weeks from now. So, yeah, I mean, that's. I remember thinking, like, yeah, Lindor's the one that's the guy you sign. Well, you don't trade that away, but I guess you do if you're able to go and get a quality replacement plus a couple other guys. So good for Cleveland again, I guess. My bad is not bad so much. Because bad sounds like sour grapes, but it's more like expected. And it's Isaac Paredes, right? So heading into tonight, Paredes was batting 218, 302, 345 in August over 63 plate appearances in 17 games. Everybody knows that he went off for that 1 month, right? He hit 270 with 8 home runs in 20 games. Just bonkers, everybody made fun of the Tigers. For the entire rest of his career, covering 116 games in like 400 plus plate appearances, he has 9 home runs and an OPS of about 615. He had one insane month. Everything else in his career shows us that he's basically the guy we thought he was. He's still young enough to get better, but Tampa is basically using him like a platoon player, which they can because they have depth and they have, a lot of other young guys they can use. So, I don't know. The consternation about that one, I don't think Tigers fans should be too concerned that he's going to be another Eugenio Suarez. I think he's got his usefulness, and he would be the best player of the Tigers this year by WAR. But a lot of that, like I said, has been driven by that one insane month. And other than that, he's just been kind of a below average player. So I don't cry too much about Isak Paredes just yet.
Yeah, and stop. Every time he does something, people are stop.
I was looking at Trace Thompson hit a big home run last night too. I'm like,
oh my god.
Yeah, and that it was funny. I posted this on Twitter last night. My alert was the Tiger symbol, and then it was Trace Thompson, and there was some sort of pun with that too. And so it was kind of funny. By the way, Erie lost to Harrisburg 9-5. Harrisburg one of being the worst teams in all of AA, as Seawolves try to stay within playoff contention, and they had some bullpen issues.
I put up today. I put up. It was Brant Herter's AA debut. I think we touched on it at the very beginning of the show, where he had a rough debut there. He ended up giving up 7 runs, which is by far the worst of the year. But he also came out like he didn't seem quite right. He's normally a guy who pounds the strike zone. He came into the day with like 110 strikeouts and 17 walks all year. Just doesn't walk guys, and he walked 3 people today, including 2 in a row in the 4th inning. And then he left the game with the trainer. To me, just watching it, looked like he kept looking at his hand, like maybe had a blister or hangnail or something like that, which would probably affect your command, I would think. So, but yeah, that's a bummer because the day before they got 7 innings from Sawyer Gibson Long, and the offense 9 runs today, 4 runs, 5 runs. It's that should be enough to get you a win, but can't win them all, unfortunately. But yeah, and then the Whitecaps won. That was a nice win, 2-1, and I think the Montans were winning. But anyway, my ugly is Jose Berrios. Jose Berrios, who you have to think the Blue Jays are a little bit upset about this one because from 2017 to 2021, he was one of the best young starters in baseball. Like, he wasn't ace level, but he was about as dependable number 2 as you could get. Just basically 4 win or 4 WAR every year. And this year, he's possibly the worst starter in baseball. The 5.39 ERA, a 4.9 FIP, and it's not so much like the prospects that Toronto gave up to get him. Austin Martin kind of looks like a bust, and Simeon Wood Richardson is just kind of stagnating there in the minors. He may still turn out okay, but it's more the 7-year, $130 million extension they signed him to. That oh man, this is the first year.
Yeah.
He's got a 5 ERA, a 5.4 ERA, and he signed through 2028, unless he chooses that opt out through 2026, which doesn't seem likely. So, yeah, I mean that's a bit ugly for Toronto. That is not the way they wanted things to go because they still have a very, very good team, and they're going to need Berrios to figure this out if they want to make any noise in the playoffs.
Yeah, thank you for reminding me about that too, because one of the things, especially with Toronto has showed they want to win. I mean, they fired their manager this year. There's been a lot of expectations, and they're expecting a winner. So Barry, I didn't realize how bad he was. And as far as Richardson goes, for his age, he was doing really well, and it sucks, unfortunately, that it happened. But I remember I wanted Martin because of his wooden batting average in the Cape Cod League. So
you can go back. I wrote a whole big long Twitter thread about why I thought he was a better prospect than Spencer Torkelson, and I was wrong, but also maybe right. I don't know. Remember, the 2020 draft is hard to figure out. We were talking about it before. The best player from the 2020 draft is Spencer Strider, who was a 4th rounder. So I don't know.
Amazing.
Yeah, it is what it is.
Maybe it'll be Colt Keith.
Well, if it's Colt Keith, then I'm excited. Like I said, that I have a lot of hope for that. All right, Uber, what is your good and bad ugly this week?
All right, my good just happened. O'Neal Cruz, the behemoth shortstop of the Pittsburgh Pirates, hardest hit ball of the StatCast era today, 122.6 miles was it yesterday, whatever it was. 122.6, just crushed it. And the thing about it is, it wasn't a shocker. It wasn't a one-time thing. The guy's been putting up a lot of big StatCast exit velo numbers ever since he came up, really. Now, the problem is he's hitting 198, but he's a rookie, so you got to give him some time. But at least the Pirate fans have something to watch because every time he comes up to the plate, it's an event. because you don't know what he's going to do. He might just crush. He might break a ball open one of these days, knock the stitches off, which would be awesome. Also, he's got that amazing cannon for an arm at shortstop. He's just really, the highlights you see are just insane. It's fun to watch. So I guess the matter, will he hit? Can he get to be at least a 250 hitter with a few walks and with all those other natural skills? Then you have something. But pretty cool to see him knock that thing at 122 today. That'd be the hardest ball since they've been tracking it.
Yeah, sorry, I was shaking my head because it was unbelievable to see that. It was just an absolute laser. He might be the most tooled up big leaguer since Bo Jackson.
Sure.
You mentioned the arm, like the hardest throw anybody's ever seen in the big leagues, or at least tracked. He's also 99 percentile sprint speed to go along with 100 percentile raw power. He's 6'8". It's like if they took Steven Moya and turned him into like a skinny shortstop. It's insanity. So yeah, I mean, I would love for that guy to hit just because he's such a freak.
Exactly. So my bad, I have two quick bads put together because they're both kind of related in some respects. A lot of Tiger fans very sad this weekend about John Walkenfuss passing away, age of 73. Had been battling dementia known for at least for a couple of years. If you grew up in that era and you're paying attention to the Tigers and you're collecting baseball cards like I was, or if you're even older than me and just watching games, he was kind of the fans' favorite, kind of the working man's kind of guy. Had the funky batting stance. Would have been more valuable in today's game because he had an on-base percentage of 349 that nobody really cared about in 1978. So, but he was just a fun guy to watch. He transitioned himself to a utility guy after it became evident that, he wasn't going to be the catcher. Once Lance Parrish got on the scene, made himself useful, which I think a lot of people had endeared him to a lot of people as well. Delaware Sports Hall of Fame, which I thought was pretty cool. And he was the kind of guy who kind of hung around. I give him credit. One thing I didn't know until I looked it up the other day, when the Philadelphia Phillies cut him after he had been moved in the Willie Hernandez trade to Philadelphia. He played there for 2 years. He was trying to latch on somewhere. He ended up going all the way down to Single A and playing for the then Miami Marlins. And he spent the entire season in Single A as a 36-year-old or whatever. He hit 10 home runs, knocked in 80 RBI, hit about 270. But they said that the young guys just soaked it all in from a guy. He was like the Crash Davis, basically, of that team, because he'd been in the majors and was just teaching those guys everything he knew. That just seemed like the kind of guy he was.
So we have it. If you're watching us on YouTube, by the way, we have his batting stance up against this is the Royals, 1981. And John Walkenfuss, the only thing I knew about him outside of the funky, there's what's his face, Otis Cabell.
Did Walkenfuss manage at all? Did he coach too? I thought he coached the minors.
Walkenfuss, he was a Toledo. I think he was at Toledo.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure he was at the Toledo Mudhens AAA. Yeah, he was a manager in the minor league system for a while too for the Tigers. I think Toledo and maybe I can't remember the other team, but I know for a fact he was. And that's all I knew about him. And he also played at the Rock and Roll. They had like a game where he played at and over at the old Tiger Stadium. This is after it was torn down. This was the Hamtramck
grounds crew or something, whatever they call it.
Yeah, like the Navin Field grounds crew. A lot of the people who never wanted them to move out of that area anyway. So, but yeah, that is sad, and there's a lot of people that were passing that. But again,
it's a shame he didn't get to play for the '84 Tigers. He just missed it by a week. So
yeah,
but he was a well-known Tiger, and he'll be missed. I think a lot of people loved him. My other guy is Bill Spaceman Lee. I don't know if you heard about this last night. No. Playing for the Savannah Bananas, 75 years old. His shtick all year is when they create some kind of emergency and they need a reliever, they need a fireman. They pull him out of the stands. He comes out drinking a beer, and he warms up the old left-hand arm and he gets a couple guys out. And last night, unfortunately, while he was warming up, he collapsed and had some what they were calling a cardiac event, which is very not good to hear. They did get him off the field, and he is okay. Well, I don't know about okay, but he's going to make it for now. So very sad because it was pretty cool. The Spaceman was he's been pitching for weird little clubs pretty much his whole life, ever since he left MLB. I mean, basically, if you had an exhibition game, he'd be there. If you had a funky jersey, he'd wear it. So 94 and 68 in his career with the Red Sox and the Expos. Won 17 games in a row, 3 straight seasons. So the guy could pitch. And obviously he had a rubber arm that made it into his 70s. So hopefully he gets better, and maybe they'll get him back with the bananas. Who knows?
I thought I saw a picture of him. I thought I saw a picture of him in the hospital, like standing up and smiling, like he's okay. But
yeah.
And I also saw my buddy Scott, who he always vacations down in Savannah and has been going to Bananas games for a long time, even before they were Bananas, I believe. But they sent out an email today that they are no longer going to be involved in actually like the Coastal Plain League. They're just 100% banana ball now. They're not going to be doing any. So I don't know if it was Joe Miller or Jake Miller, one of the Millers that came to the Tigers in the draft.
I think it was Joe.
I think so, right? Yeah, but he's going to be one of the last professional baseball players who cut their teeth with the Savannah Bananas.
Well, through YouTube and everything else, they've caught fire. People are interested, and I think if they did barnstorm into other parts of the country, people would go. I think it'll be a winner. So if they're on fire, we can call them Bananas Foster, right? So,
by the way, there is for anybody who's deep in the deep tracks, there is a song by Warren Zevon, came out in 1980, off his Bad Luck Streak in Dancing School, and it's called Bill Lee, and the lyrics are it's a simple little song, 1 minute 37 seconds. And also Bill Lee, every time he was on an interview, he always said with the communist hat, he had the CCP red hat on. He was out there for a reason, and the lyrics are simply, you're supposed to sit on your ass and not at stupid things, and that's hard to do. If you don't, they'll screw you, and if you do, they'll screw you too. And I'm standing in the middle of the diamond all alone. I'm always play to win when it comes to skin and bones. And sometimes I say things I shouldn't like. And sometimes I say things I shouldn't like. And there's all harmonica stuff in it. So anyways, if you have time and you're bored enough, or not bored enough, but if you want to check out a song about Bill Lee, Spaceman Lee, who also had a really good career with the Expos as well, I suggest checking out that song. So,
all right.
I'm adding a lot of. What's up?
My ugly, real quick.
Yeah.
Last night for the Royals, Jonathan Heasley puked on the mound 3 times.
Oh,
and that was ugly. He puked a couple times in the 4th, got through the inning, and they actually sent him back out for the 5th in the heat. I couldn't believe it. And I think he got one guy out, and he puked again. Matheny had to pull him. So it sounded like he just had an upset stomach and a heat-related illness. So, but yeah, a 3 puke effort, not bad.
That is something you can remember on. So at least what is it? They've done prop bets now on the color of Gatorade. So I wonder if they do prop bets on color of puke. So, I mean, they're turning betting into anything. So I mean, it's pretty.
I'm sure you could get like 1,000 odds, 1 in 1,000 odds, or something like that if somebody's going to puke.
One time in high school basketball, I barely made it to the bench, and then I puked in the game.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
Yeah. This town called White Pine, Michigan had fluoride in their water, and their water just was horrible.
Dr.
I played
Strangelove.
pretty much the whole game, and by the 4th quarter, we had to flash it 5 fingers at the coach to come out. I'm flashing 5 fingers, and I sprint to the bench, and I puke everywhere. But I got off the court. So
all right. Well, on that note, my good and bad, the ugly this week involves so right now I've been looking at teams that I normally don't look at because I'm so Tigers focused and try to pay attention more as the Tigers are falling off the postseason. Who are we kidding? A while back, but my good is Riley Adley Rutschman, who, by the way, was part of the Little League sliding down. They did the slide thing. He was part of that, which was cool. And I'm sure they had to sign a bunch of medical waivers like, for the love of God, do not injure yourself, please. There's like some guy with the insurance policy, like right there, like, okay, sign here, 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 here. If you get down the hill, also sign here, here, and here. So they like medics, like they do with NASCAR races, just swarming on them. Are you all right? You all right? So the reason why I wanted to bring him up is we talk about the impact of some of the young players that across the league. We haven't really seen it in Detroit, admittedly, but Baltimore is getting some good benefits from him this month. Here's an interesting thing. So his walk rate is higher. Is at 21%. He's got a strikeout rate of 14% and a WRC plus of 183 for the month of August with a good enough for a WAR of 1.5. That's not bad. That's not too shabby for a guy who started, in terms of where he was at this year, he started the year at AA. So he started the year at AA, and in 74 games so far, he's got 8 home runs, 49 RBIs, and for the season, overall, he's a 3.6 WAR player right now. Fangraphs WAR of 3.6. Holy crap.
Wow.
That's good. That's really good.
He might already be the best catcher in baseball. It's kind of wild.
Yeah.
It's annoying watching these other teams with their top prospects be everything they hoped. Julio Rodriguez just hit the 2020 mark. So, yeah.
Blood Right, we'll actually revisit that for you here in a minute. We can go back to Matt Manning stuff, or I can also link what we posted on Twitter earlier, so we'll be able to answer that for you. Mainly swing and miss stuff. He was location, but the location, velocity, slider, fastball. Well, we'll get to that. We'll revisit that a little closely after we're done here. So, Rutschman is just this is number one pick. What a number one pick should be doing. And it's not. Look, I'm not trying to knock Spencer Torkelson. I'm not.
No,
so say that, but
yeah, and what's kind of wild is if you look at that draft from the Orioles, so their first pick was Adley Rutschman, the number one prospect in baseball, according to some sites heading into the year, and their second pick was Gunnar Henderson, who is the number one prospect in baseball now, according to some sites. So, they did okay. Now, nobody else from that class is particularly good, but if you're going to get 2 guys like that, I think you're all right.
Yeah, you're more than all right. I hate you. No, I'm just joking. I don't hate them. It is what it is. They've drafted well. No, in all seriousness, a lot of people were saying this is what the Tigers should be right now. No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. But if you thought the Tigers should be what Baltimore is right now, based off, if you're really paying attention to the Tiger system, no, I'm sorry. Again, Baltimore may have lacked pitching in their farm system, but they're getting better about that. But there was, it's comparing apples and oranges, at least in my opinion. So my bad this week, unfortunately, it's, I've been trying to stay away from, like I said, being so negative about the Tigers, blah, blah, blah. I'm also stay realistic too. But it was interesting today was the 2023 schedule came out. And so I have a couple qualms with the schedule because now it's going to be, the way the MLB spun it was the new, more balanced 2023 schedule, which will begin on opening day on March 30th. It's a massive change for the sport. No longer is each team's slate significantly skewed towards division opponents. Oh no. Instead, schedules will feature more variety. For the first time in modern MLB history, every team will play each other at some point. And what okay, I don't care. I like the divisions. I mean, look, 19 times is a little excessive. Okay, really admit that. All right. If this is for anybody in terms of for the AL Central teams, they're screwed. Well, I mean, if we look at it right now, the AL Central is one of the worst divisions in all of baseball, top to bottom. Can Cleveland? I mean, you can celebrate Cleveland. You can celebrate the White Sox, Minnesota. Great. You know what this does though? This, in terms of those division games, there's somewhat, I don't want to say rivalries, because I think, frankly, the Tigers, if you had to think about it, and I have an article coming out for Woodward Sports about this tomorrow about the schedule. if you think about it, the Tigers don't have a rivalry anyway. I mean, do they really have a rivalry? I mean, Cleveland, maybe. There's no real. I mean, outside of Toronto, everybody references Toronto back in the AL East days when the Tigers and Toronto would exchange, and the Yankees. Actually, for the most part, the Yankees were a rival, were somewhat of a rival, although being one sided at one point. But the Tigers and Yankees always got chippy, even in decades past. I don't see that again. I don't know. I just don't like the idea of taking away all these division games. And do we really need to see? I'm looking at the Tigers schedule right now, and there's a couple teams on there. Like, I don't care if they play the Marlins. I don't care. Does it give me an excuse to go to Miami? Sure. But am I going to go? Probably not, because no one's going to the games anyways. Not to sound like a dick, but this is opening month. It's brutal. You start the season at Tampa, then you go to Houston, and then the first home game is against Boston. Okay. All right, fine. Then you go on the road, take on Toronto, then San Francisco at home, then Cleveland, at Baltimore, at Milwaukee, and then you finish the month in April against Baltimore. Then you play the Mets, then St. Louis, Cleveland, Seattle, Pittsburgh, and then you're on the road with Washington and Kansas City. Wait a minute here. So wait a minute. Middle of May, you go from Washington to Kansas City instead of Kansas City to Chicago what?
Yeah, that was the main thing I noticed, is some of the road trips seem very odd.
Yeah.
The combinations. It looks like a really tough first 6-7 weeks of the season, but then again, it's probably going to look like that when you have the fourth worst record in baseball.
Yes.
So, yeah.
I will say I agree with Michael though. Less Red Sox Yankee matchups, but guess what? ESPN's going to find a way to put it on every Sunday night. Guess what? They'll find a way. They'll find a way to put something. They're like, oh, you know what? We'll put the Mets
classic
on.
Yankees, Red Sox.
Yeah, classic Red Sox in Yankees 8 times on Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN. Sorry, if I seem like I'm a bitter Midwest guy, so be it. I don't have both. If we're looking at it, John Boy Media, which I respect the hell out of for what they do, it's an East Coast company. They're going to show some bias towards the East Coast teams. That's fine. But the reason why I like working for Woodward is, simply put, it gives it a little bit of Midwest flavor. And as far as I'm concerned, that's fine by me, because sometimes as a Midwestern, I get so sick and tired of the Boston, New York, Mets, and Philly. Look at Charlie. Like, I don't care. So I think the schedule, to me at least, I sound like an old man right now, but I really don't like the balance. Again, even in June, they have an interesting series at home. So they have a homestand from June 9th to June 13th, or June 14th rather. And it's an interesting one. They host Arizona and Atlanta. All right. Okay, that's interesting. Again, do I care about the Diamondbacks? No. So there's one part of the schedule that makes sense from a home point standpoint. So from June 15th to June 25th, they play Minnesota on the road, then come home to Kansas City, and then they play Minnesota at home, and then end out the season, or end out June going to Texas, and then go to Colorado. Now, look, I'm not gonna lie, I might go to Rockies game next year. Denver's a cool city. That's something I would actually, you know what? Now that I think about it, I'm actually going to look into that. My wife wants to go to a game, or she wants to go to Red Rocks in Colorado anyways. So make it a whole weekend trip or something like that. So anyway, I digress. So that's my bad. The ugly is, we were looking at, so as far as, it's so funny. They were talking about how, you guys were talking earlier about O'Neill Cruz with the StatCast record. There was somebody on Twitter, I think it was Tom House, was talking about, why do we care so much about miles per hour, those things? Go ahead, Chris.
But Tom House always does that facetiously.
Yes, I know.
Yeah. Okay, sorry.
No, it's okay. But it's funny, because every time people take it seriously, though, that's the reason why I laugh about it, because it's one of those things where people don't have a sense of humor, or don't understand, and it's hard, because sometimes on text it does seem to be a case where no one seems to understand you very well.
And there are enough like weird old timey people like that will say stuff like that you can get you can easily think that he means it.
Yeah, because it's the old timer. He's an old timer. So back in the day, blah 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 blah. So, let's take a moment for Charlie before I go to my ugly.
Yeah, I don't know. He's being very clingy right now. But Word Bango said, "Let's hear it for Charlie. Charlie, speak, Charlie, speak."
You know what's funny? This is the first time he hasn't squeaked in the
If I put him
background.
on the ground, speak. If I put him on the
no.
ground, he might speak.
He's like, no, dude, I'm not speaking. What are you talking about?
Speak, Charlie, speak.
All right, Christopher brings up a good point on YouTube. I like this, and he said, "I like to see more Yankees or Giants or Yankees Dodgers, just because Dodgers and Giants were both New York teams at one point. Might be a nice way of reviving the old baseball rivalries." Okay, you know what? That's a good point, Christopher. The Dodgers and Yankees also faced off, I think, in the '81 World Series, so you can get that idea of that too. So, but yeah, more Charlie. Yeah, you know what? I'm all for. I can't bring my dog Lucy is an 80-pound pit bull. So actually, I should bring her in here at some point. But it might be hard to lift. Actually, I actually could put her on the producer seat. So, but that being said, I'll do that in just a second. But so my ugly, and I haven't brought them up in a long time, are the Pittsburgh Pirates, who, by the way, have the same record as the Tigers. So for those of you scoring at home, the Pirates are awful. The Pirates are 2-8 in their last. They're actually now in last place. Like Cincinnati was there for a long time, but congratulations, Pittsburgh. You're now in last place. And they're 47-77, I mentioned. And there's nothing, I think, outside of the A's, I think there's nothing redeemable. I'm gonna bring Lucy in here in a second. I don't think there's anything redeemable about the Pittsburgh Pirates. There's some you can talk about the young talent. There's a couple, like, Hayes we saw that plays third base. They have some pieces in there, but they have just totally decided to say just a big middle finger to the fan base. They can't wait for Steelers baseball or football rather. So
no, they have a great farm system, but again, it doesn't mean anything at the big league level.
Yeah, and look, and O'Neal Cruz is stuck there for a while now, or maybe he'll be traded next year, because then if they're like, "Oh, wait a minute, he's gonna get a raise? Oh, screw him, we're gonna trade him already," because I'm Bob Nutting and I do everything. I literally reuse paper clips, and if you have a note card, if you have a 3x5 note card, and you have it right here, and you're not using both sides, I will destroy you. Okay, you use both sides of 3x5 card. I'm Bob Nutting. That guy. By the way, that guy who trolled them and took off his shirt and said sell the team. That kid was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. So, but yeah, if you want to complain about being a Tigers fan, imagine being a Pirates fan. Just saying. So,
yep.
All right, and that is my good and bad ugly this week. And so, Chris, while you get questions, I'll bring my dog in. So, Chris, go ahead and get some of the questions ready, because we do have a couple of them. We got one that was emailed to us too that I put in the chat. Did you get that one right, Chris?
I couldn't see
screenshot from the gentleman.
Is there a private chat?
Yeah, in our private chat in our DMs. And then we got a couple of them. So let me get the dog real quick, Chris. Go ahead and
check. Yeah, sorry. I made a tweet that people keep responding to, so I've lost a bunch of.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. What? Let me see. Where's the? Sorry. I only see the reviews.
Let me see. There was I think there was an email. Let me see here. Let me find it. I'll read the question. Wait, let's see here. Or did I DM, or did I send it to you? This is the question to you. That's okay. That's all right. That's on me. Okay. No, I never mind. That's on me. I'll take responsibility for that. I have the question right here. So let me get that real quick. My bad, folks. All right. Doing show stuff on the fly. Not organized. Okay.
I'm saying, I see a couple in here now.
Okay, this comes from Adam Wilston, and he was listening. So he said, "Hi, Rogelio. I was listening to a TMR crossover episode, which was the last episode. I find the subject of pitcher usage interesting. I wonder if you guys ever discussed times through the order penalty. I vaguely recall the Rockies 1 year going no starter instead of using three or four pitchers to go through each game. I tried looking this up, and I couldn't find any articles on it. Maybe I made it up, or maybe it lasted a short time. I'd be curious about your thoughts on this, and if you think that this could be used effectively, and if you think there's any effect on injury risk. My quick thoughts are, and I think could be effective, that you might be hard-pressed to lower starting pitchers in free agency, which I completely agree with. If used effectively, you can better utilize the pitchers you do have and overall spend less on a pitching staff. Injuries, I have no idea, but I think it would be a good way to mitigate the effect of injuries on a staff. I really enjoy your show. Youper, and Chris bring some good dialogue that's worth listening to. Truly appreciate you listening. Appreciate the way you accept some constructive criticism of the show today. The content's fabulous. Hope you guys can work out the other kinks. Thanks, guys. Keep up the good work. Adam, first and foremost, thank you for the email. Much appreciated. You rock. Thank you. So that being said, Chris and Youper, did you guys
I remember
got it?
You did. You texted that to me.
Okay, that's on me then. Okay.
No, it's all good. No, I'm saying I don't think we've ever done a deep dive into the third time through the order penalty. We've kind of obliquely mentioned it as sometimes we're want to do, where we just kind of assume other people know what we're talking about. I know we brought it up a time or two, but yeah, for the vast majority of pitchers, they get worse the second time they see batters, and then much worse the third time, and then theoretically worse the fourth. Now, the best of the best, it doesn't really matter that much. I heard Dan Dickerson, oddly enough, today talking about how Logan Webb, the Tigers, how he randomly, he melted down today, but he gets much better the third time through the order for some reason. So it's not everybody, but I do not remember that his talk about what he mentioned with the Rockies, but I was saying that's essentially what the Rays were trying to do with the opener, right? Where they would have an opener face, throw 1 to 3 innings, basically get through the order one time, and then you could have your bulk innings guy come in, and you're giving hitters. First of all, you're messing up the opposing team's lineup strategy. You want to make it so the guys are different enough that it doesn't matter, or that it does matter. And yeah, you're making it so you get through those first few innings clean, and then you have another guy come in with a different arm angle or different look, and the hitters are just kind of confused. So it is an interesting thing. I think it does create more kind of roster juggling than a lot of managers and general managers want to deal with. But I think that what was the year that the Rays did that? Was it 2019?
Yeah, it was when they went to the World Series, basically that season.
Yeah.
And I think the third time through the order penalty was definitely a lot behind Blake Snell coming out of that game, even though he had shut them down to that point, the Dodgers. It ended up backfiring on a one-night basis, but there was definite logic behind what they were doing. It seems like we're seeing a few less openers now, just a couple of years later. It tends to become, I think it's becoming more of something to do when your rotation is messed up from long games and other things, or double headers and stuff like that. So I think to me, the closer was always about getting them through that first inning, the other team's best batters. You could pick some righty, lefty platoon splits in your favor. And then you get the starter in there for 3-4 innings to go through the order twice, but maybe you only have to face the top of the order once, and that was good for them. So I love that stuff. I would love to see more of it. When people bemoan starters not being the workhorses they used to be, that's falling on deaf ears for me. I don't mind if a starter goes deep. Who cares? That's great. But I love when teams try to do things unconventionally.
Yeah, and you know what? There's somebody mentioned that today. I think it was during the broadcast that Matt Manning was talking to Matt Shepard about not going deep in ball games. Like, it doesn't matter. And I completely when everybody, it always comes up every time without fail. People talk about and I've done this myself. Mickey Lolich's 1972 season where he threw 372 innings. And in fact, Matt Shepard brought it up a couple weeks ago. Those days are gone. You're not going to see that. And look, I like Adam's question because I like it structured because it makes you think a little bit. And as far as, look, the Tigers, in a way, if you look at the way they've done the rotation this year in the bullpen, they've been able. it's kind of been a shorter thing. Like, look at Justin Verlander, for example. He was taken out yesterday over, he had a perfect game. So, like, look, Houston is going to need him for the playoffs. And if people are going to complain about he's going to have third. Look, the guy's going to head to the Hall of Fame regardless if he throws that perfect game or not. Doesn't matter. His numbers are going to put him in the Hall of Fame. Simple as that. He is worried about winning. He wants to win another ring. I would want to win. I'm more worried about that too. So, as far as that goes. So, I don't know. I think that if you're developing pitching the way you are right now, I think the Tigers should consider it. But for now, I don't know. Like, I think that with the injuries too, and some of them, like I said, will come with a predisposition, like Casey Mize. Casey Mize has been injured probably since Auburn. Again, not irresponsible speculation, but remember, he did shut down the season in Erie. So I think if they can find a way, if it reduces injuries, by all means, I'm for it. The Rays showed that. Just bring an army of pitchers out. Just do it. So
one thing for Adam to look up, since he's been looking things up, in my memory, I thought the Rockies were trying to go to a 4-man rotation for a while. That was the big thing. They were stepping back to a 4-man, and everybody was kind of talking about that. So if he, it seems like he's into it, you should see if that's the case, if that's what he was trying to remember.
Yeah, there's a good question that came up there by Sean O'Toole, and he brings up a good point. Not hearing enough chatter about plucking our GM candidate from Atlanta. What they've done with developing youth, Grissom, Strider, Money, Mike, how can we not be looking in there first? That's a great point, Sean. I can't. The GM tree, as far as get out of here, as far as the tree goes, their talent is concerned, Atlanta right now. Some of the guys have come out of the Braves organization. Even it's a lot of what they saw in Toronto. So I'm always going to butcher his name.
Antopoulos.
Thank you. You make it sound so easy. Damn you,
I'm like 80% Greek.
What? Really?
No, I'm no.
I was gonna say Brown doesn't. It's all Greek to me.
Stacey Gatsoulias on there.
Yeah. Oh yes. Yeah. Gatsoulias. I can say that name perfectly, but when I look at that name, I just go Anthopoulos.
Papadopoulos? George Papadopoulos? Mammon George?
What? No, but all jokes aside, you should. I mean, in terms of his tree, he's got a pretty good tree in front of him. I mean, as far as the guys he brought down with him to Atlanta, Mike Plant definitely should be a name that comes up quite a bit. This is a guy who's been there for a long, who's kind of, again, who's been with Alex, but just in terms of operation, Dana Brown. No, I did bring up Dana Brown. In fact,
Dana Brown gets mentioned in just about every article. So, I mean,
in fact, I think I brought him up.
He's the one name from Atlanta that you hear. Yeah, I'm sure they're looking at good candidates everywhere. But yeah, he's any list of top names out there, Dana Brown's going to be on it because of the way the Braves have found talent, signed talent to long-term deals. Yeah, and it is kind of funny that Vaughn Grissom basically he got signed because he was Riley Green's teammate.
Yeah,
everybody was watching Riley Green and go, "Hey, what about that guy?" And yep, there you go. He's in the majors.
He's killing
that's
it.
a good high school team.
Yeah, I mean, this is where my memory is shot. But I mentioned, I mentioned him on the podcast, but I did not mention him. The three candidates I had in the article was Carlos Rodriguez, who's the VP of Player Development and International Scouting for the Rays. James Harris, who's done a really good job. He's assistant GM, the Cleveland Guardians, and Josh Burns because of his connection with Hinch. So there you go. But yeah, Dana Brown, yeah, definitely. I think he's been mentioned. I think Cody mentioned him too. I think Cody Saberhagen from The Athletic may have mentioned him. So by all means, man. I mean, even their analytics department. Let's talk about that real quick. Everybody talked about the Robbie Grossman. He's doing really well, and there's like 2 or 3 articles written about it. Did I miss the boat or something? Did I miss something? He's doing okay. He's doing better, and they found something great. But is he a Gold Glove outfielder hitting 30 home runs? No. Let's look at the splits here real quick. But
I mean, what? Yeah, the articles that came out and the quotes from Hinch were I think what kind of set people off a little bit about that. Although we talked earlier about how they're, Tigers fans are just ripe for complaining about any player going anywhere else and having success. But yeah, the idea that Atlanta was very able to quickly diagnose the problem with him and use these special fancy techniques to show him and work with him on it. Whereas we've kind of been operating under the assumption that the Tigers have all that stuff now, right? We've heard so much about their improved analytics department, and they may actually have that, but you need everybody pulling in the same direction. And if coaches don't like the information you give them or don't believe in it, or they're not asking for the right information, then there's not a whole lot you can do. And so that's one of the main things, is that they basically just tried to remake the organization on the fly, and there's too many factions and too much pulling in opposite directions. And so yeah, that's why it's because Hinch came out and said, yeah, we need to get better down here and up there, up in the offices. It's like, oh geez, all right, well, he's not pulling any punches there.
No, he didn't.
No, and I like that about that. And like I said, we've heard some things that, like, one person was thinking, not one person, but one side was thinking this, and one thing was even with minor league call-ups. And by the way, the Ray brought up a good one. The assistant GM in Baltimore.
Yeah,
I'm gonna try this. Okay, let me see if I get this right. Sig
Migdal.
Yeah. Okay. God, I'm horrible.
Yeah,
Sorry
about
my
he's a really interesting character. I don't know if you've ever read much about him, but he was
he worked at NASA. He was a blackjack dealer. So
but then he worked with the Cardinals and the Astros. And when he was with the Astros, I think he spent a whole season with a minor league team, like riding the buses and stuff like that, just to hang out with the players and understand what their life was like.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, he was a Sabre member too. He was a Sabre member.
Yeah, I think you probably find old articles about him writing about baseball, and he's just like a really smart dude who really liked baseball and was like eventually got into baseball. And
he might have wrote for Prospectus too.
Yeah, and it's hard to argue with what the Astros have done, and then now what the Orioles are doing. So if you want to pluck some guy from there, sure, I would have no problem with Sig Migdal. But you never know if like the GM is a different animal, right? I think Al Avila's problem was that he was more of like, he almost just like wanted to be a figurehead, if you will. Like he wanted to delegate everything to everybody else. He's just the GM. I'll come and make the final just choices. But what that left him not knowing enough about anything. He's like, yeah, that's the guy. Like, no, Al, that's not the guy. So you just don't know. You don't know if you could be a good scout, you could be a good quant, you could be a bunch of things, but not necessarily the person who has the charisma and the organizational ability to bring it all together and get everybody pulling in the right direction.
This guy was a biomathematician at NASA. Think about that for a second. Yeah. I can't. Okay, you know what? For my bachelor, okay, let me just say this. For my degree, I took conceptual math because that's how bad I am at math. Okay, conceptual math. It's a crappy class. It literally. And the highest math I took was in like informal geometry, like in high school. I took my bare minimum. That's it. Math has never been my friend, never. And the fact that I'm able to sort through baseball stats, again, I don't know. Maybe it's just because it's baseball related. If it's baseball, I think if my teachers in high school would have been like, okay, Rogelio, we're gonna help you get better at math by relating to everything baseball related. Because my science teacher, Mr. Coleman, shout out to Mr. Coleman. He played Star
Dabney?
Trek. Huh?
Was it Dabney Coleman?
Oh, no, I wish it was Dabney Coleman, man. Like that dude, that guy's a good actor. 9 to 5.
Broken Dagger?
Yeah, Broken Dagger. Ooh, nice reference there.
Yes.
No, Mr. Coleman played Star Trek The Next Generation card game, and he was really good. He was like top 5 in the world in this game. And I would talk about baseball cards. He'd talk about Star Trek The Next Generation, which I like Star Trek, but I'm not into Star Trek as much as I am into baseball. But yeah, and you know what, Ray, I have to check that out because I did not know he was mentioned in that book. So, but yeah, he's a guy who literally came to there was a great story about him, how in 2003, he just came to winter meetings looking for a job. And this guy was older, and it's kind of an inspiration for guys like myself who are not 23 and going to Harvard. or Yale or whatever as my leaving school to get a job in baseball. Oh, you you graduated from U of M Dearborn and you have 10 years of a podcast experience and you formulate prospect stuff and you've been pretty good at it. Screw you. I'm just joking. And your partner, Chris Brown, has the same name as some rapper and writes about video games. And Youper is just a Tiger fan that knows a lot. What does that count for? Anyway, sorry. All right. So, no, that's a good name to bring up. All right. Continue to roll on with the questions. Because I think
we had a couple. So one of them was about Parker Meadows. Where does that? That was from Steve Butts. I think.
Yeah. If they could see him getting call up in September. From what I heard from Hinch, they want to see Kryler at some point. They haven't mentioned anybody else by name. But Parker Meadows, maybe we don't talk about this enough. I mean, we've talked about it on the minor league podcast, but Parker Meadows has put himself in the conversation of maybe making a roster next year, starting spring training.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, he appears to have conquered Double-A. If you don't want to count your eggs in before they chickens, whatever . But yeah, I mean, he's going on 2.5 months or whatever, being 50% better than the average hitter there, and he's not like a Gold Glove center fielder. He still has some instinctual things and he'll make some silly mistakes, and his throw decisions aren't always great. But he has the physical tools to be a big league center fielder like tomorrow. He still has crazy, I think he's probably like a 29 foot per second sprint speed, like 80th percentile, but with those super long strides. And yeah, I mean, he's a more ideal center fielder in the big leagues than Riley Green is, just because of his speed. Now, Riley Green has terrific instincts, and we've seen like the crazy, diving catches he makes. But Parker Meadows wouldn't have to dive for most of those balls because he would just outrun them. So yeah, but the only way I would see them calling him up now is if there was an injury. But even then, they have enough bodies that they'll just put Daz Cameron, put Zach Short in the outfield. I think they really. It's hard to know. We don't have a GM at the moment, but I think Ryan Garco and traditionally, I think a lot of organizations value guys playing in what amounts to a pennant chase, and that's what Erie's doing right now. They are neck and neck with Bowie, even though they have the best record in the Eastern League for the whole season by like 4 or 5 games. They just came up a little short the first half, and now they're neck and neck with Bowie. So I think they value that. That's a good experience for young players to play meaningful baseball games late in the year. So I think we're a different situation if we're the Tigers, the Braves, right? And they're in a pennant chase in the big leagues, and somebody goes down in the outfield, they might call up Parker Meadows just for the body, but it doesn't make much sense right now.
Probably a decent shot. He goes to Arizona Fall League, right?
I've got a Arizona Fall League speculation piece coming out soon, and he is definitely one of the people I'm putting on there because I think they're going to want to send guys out there. They normally do this, but guys who they probably have already made the decision they're going to put Parker Meadows in the 40-man, but you'd like to be sure, put a bunch of 40-man decision guys out there and have them play against other guys who are going to be big leaguers in the next year or two to see how they hold up.
It's really been quite a summer. You just consider how long he kind of languished at West Michigan, and then to see him come on this year, there's always, even as he was having good games early on, there's always that doubt. How real is this? How short term? How flash in the pan is it? Because he lulled everybody to sleep by doing nothing for 2.5 years, and every good game now, every home run, he's kind of pushing aside a little more doubt all the time. So I think he is somebody Tiger fans should be watching, and I don't think he'll be up this year. I'd be stunned, but I think he'll give us something to watch with Arizona Fall League.
Yeah, and I was watching earlier today. He went 0 for 3 today with a walk, but the walk came against a lefty, which is one of the big issues he's had this year. He got down 0-2 and then just worked a walk. It was like, all right, well, that's easy enough.
That's a big league at bat.
I think there's a lot to like there.
Yeah, especially him and Winfield Perez, who've done a lot to put themselves on the map as far as that goes, because they were both West Michigan staples for a long time. So definitely good to see that. And Perez will also probably get some consideration for the 40-man roster as well. All right, Chris, was there anything else?
But we had Jay Gilly asked us if we like the bonus runner rule. I have mixed vibes about it. I don't know if we discussed that much, the ghost man on second rule.
Oh, actually, I kind of like it, actually.
Yeah, I don't hate it. I don't hate it enough to get roasted, really riled up over the whole thing. It's the same for both teams. I can see why they want to do it. At first, I think a nice compromise would be to play real baseball in the 10th inning and maybe get to it in the 11th. But that's a quibble.
Yeah, I like to say. By the way, nice use of the word quibble there. I like that.
Thank you.
It does feel a little bit odd to me, but I also, I'm not a huge fan. Every now and then, it's fun to have a game go ridiculously long, right? But like imagine the Tigers right now. Who they play next?
Rangers. Rangers.
Okay, yeah, perfect. Imagine the Tigers and Rangers going into like the 17th inning a couple days from now, and you got like 4 different position players pitching, and it's just like, no, just get it over with. So, I mean, they could probably fine tune it. Like you said, I wouldn't mind if maybe they start with a runner on first, and then a runner on first and second, and then the bases loaded, or just start with the bases loaded. Let's get it over with. But I don't hate it. I don't really care.
Yeah, I don't really get caught up in it because sometimes I want to go to bed. So, and honestly, guys,
yeah,
anybody who's listening, at some point you want to go to bed, and people do go to bed. They fall asleep during a baseball game. So,
truth.
Yeah. So at this point in my life, it's like, okay, if I can get everything done conveniently and I can get the game notes and get everything done for prep, my articles, great. I'm talking about efficiency here at this point. Even when I go to the games, I'm like, okay, the X amount of time, that. So time plays a factor when you get older. So, but for me, it doesn't matter. All right, Chris, what else we have?
That was the last question that I saw. I mean, the other ones were like, hey, is Manning good now? And this kind of stuff we discussed already.
Yeah, so we did not want to forget the gentleman in here, Bloodright. We talked about him a little earlier. In terms of what he's been able to do, it's just fastball, slider. The slider has been having a little more movement on it. The fastball has been topping out more. It's really it's been kind of location, but those are the 2 pitches he's throwing. And again, we talked about this a little earlier, the lack of a third pitch. Unless there's anything else you guys want to add to that.
No, I mean, I think he's always been a strike thrower. He's getting better at putting the ball where he wants it now. He's got a reliable second pitch that he can use to expand his own. He's learning how to pitch. I think that's a big part of it. He's also probably on a bit of a hot streak or whatever, and teams are going to figure out what his plan is, and he's going to have to adjust to that. But yeah,
he's not visiting middle very much. That's always the key.
and even when he was struggling last year, it was mostly like he had 3 or 4 just absolute disastrous starts, and everything else was just kind of surviving in a way that we sort of saw from like Bo Brisky this year, right? Where Bo Brisky never missed a ton of bats this year, but he would struggle and fight his way through outings and not get blown up. And that's kind of what Manning did last year. You're just kind of treading water until you figure out what works for you at the highest level. And he's got the physical talent to do it. So yeah, I think it's just a step forward. But who knows? Like it's very rarely just like straight arrow up from here on out. I'm sure he's gonna have some bumps in the road coming up, but it's certainly nice to see, and one of the few pleasant surprises this year.
Like I said, I'm not gonna take it for granted. I'm not, because it's for what this team has been through the last few months, especially the starting staff with the injuries and what have you. I'll take it any day of the week. So that's the way I look at it. But that was pretty much it, right? Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't see anything else.
You know what? I think there's one more question. I apologize. See here. Double check. Oh yeah, I did want to thank. Actually, I wanted to give somebody a thanks here, and that was Zeke Hoffman by the way, was listening to the podcast last week, and loves the show. And he sent me a Jacksonville Suns hat. So thanks. That was a Tigers AA affiliate for a while. I think I mentioned it earlier, but I wanted to again express my gratitude. I'm sending him a Tiger Minor Report shirt. So awesome stuff from Zeke. So thanks so much for listening. We'll be back next week. Maybe if Jackson Jobe pitches this weekend, we'll definitely be out there for that, either Saturday or whenever he decides to pitch, or whenever the Tigers want him to pitch, we'll be out there. And we're going to try to get some interviews. We've been not lacking. It's just we get there in odd times, and we don't know who, like, we know who to contact, but then it's just everybody's kind of seems like a little busy. We're not always like going, hey, we want to talk to people. That's what we want.
No, and it has changed since COVID, right? Like, you used to be able to just like, hey, I want to talk to this guy, and now you have to, I don't know, it's like a special request almost now. So
yeah, I want Tigers PR people to just be like, what are you asking questions for? What are you doing?
Yeah.
The stare, man. I'm joking. Maybe. Anyway, so thanks so much for listening. We'll appreciate it. We'll be back next week, same bat time, same bat channel, and there'll probably be some clips from the show we'll be sharing. And thanks so much for the questions, everything, and all the content you can find over at woodwardsports.com. Again, if you have not subscribed to the podcast, again, thank you for the feedback the last couple of weeks. We really appreciate it. Have a good week, everybody. And the Tigers will kick off the series on the road against Texas starting on Friday. Tyler Alexander against somebody. I'm not sure who it is, but anyway, good night, guys. Have a good week.